The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked sidewalks of downtown Riverside. A bitter wind sweeps through the narrow streets, carrying the sharp scent of exhaust and the faint aroma of stale coffee from the corner cafe. It's the kind of day when people move quickly, eyes forward, avoiding anything, or anyone, that might slow them down. Near the entrance of a boarded-up pawn shop, a man sits cross-legged on the cold concrete. His clothes are worn, his boots scuffed and split at the seams. A faded army jacket clings to his frame, patches frayed and threadbare. His hands cradle a paper cup, the cardboard soft from repeated use. Most passers-by don't even look at him. Those who do glance his way offer the same mix of pity and dismissal, just another homeless man in a city that's stopped counting. But today, someone stops. Officer Trent Malloy, a patrolman known more for his bravado than his compassion, steps into the man's shadow. The cop's sunglasses reflect the man's hunched figure like a distorted mirror. "Well, well," Malloy says, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of a few nearby pedestrians. "What's this? Prime real estate for begging? You think you own this sidewalk?" The man doesn't answer. He simply looks up, his eyes calm but unreadable, the kind of stare that feels heavier than words. Malloy chuckles, a low, mocking sound. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or do you save your breath for asking decent folks for spare change?" A couple across the street slows their pace, pretending to check their phones as they watch. The tension between the officer and the man tightens like a drawn bowstring. "You know what I think?" Malloy says, tilting his head. "I think you like playing the victim, sitting here, looking all pitiful, waiting for handouts. I bet you've never worked an honest day in your life." Still, the man doesn't react. At least, not in the way Malloy expects. He doesn't shrink back, doesn't stammer or protest. Instead, he calmly sets the paper cup aside and straightens his back. "I asked you a question," Malloy says, his tone sharpening. "Or do I need to write you up for loitering? Maybe take you in for obstructing the sidewalk?" By now, a small cluster of onlookers has gathered. Some are filming on their phones, the red recording dots glinting in the sunlight. Malloy notices but doesn't care. He's too wrapped up in the performance, too sure of his authority. The man rises slowly to his feet, standing eye to eye with the officer. Up close, the faint creases in his jacket reveal an almost imperceptible orderliness, creases that aren't accidental. His boots, though battered, are laced in a precise military knot. "Do you have ID?" Malloy demands. The man reaches into his jacket pocket. Malloy's hand hovers near his holster out of habit, eyes narrowing. But instead of a tattered driver's license or a welfare card, the man produces a slim black leather wallet. He flips it open with practiced ease. The gold shield catches the light first, followed by the crisp, unmistakable lettering. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Malloy freezes. His smirk falters as he reads the name embossed beneath the badge. "Special Agent Daniel Cross," the man says, his voice steady and measured. "And you've just made a very serious mistake." Gasps ripple through the small crowd. The phones keep recording. For the first time that afternoon, it's Malloy who seems out of place, his authority slipping through his fingers like sand. Agent Cross slides the badge back into his jacket and takes a slow step forward. "We're going to have a conversation, Officer Malloy," he says. "But not here, and not on your terms." Malloy's jaw tightens, but he doesn't reply. The eyes of the bystanders, and the cold, unflinching gaze of the man he thought was powerless, leave him with no easy way out. The wind picks up again, scattering a few paper flyers down the street. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wails. But here, in this small pocket of Riverside, silence has taken over. The kind of silence that signals the beginning of something bigger, something that won't end on this sidewalk. The air between them feels heavier now, thick with the sudden imbalance of power. Officer Malloy had walked up certain he was the one controlling the situation. But now, standing in front of an undercover FBI agent he had just mocked in front of witnesses, that confidence drains from his posture like water from a punctured bucket. Agent Daniel Cross doesn't move quickly. He doesn't raise his voice. But every step forward draws Malloy a little deeper into the realization that this is not a street performance anymore. This is an incident that could define his career in the worst possible way. Cross tilts his head slightly, his eyes locking on Malloy's. "You've been patrolling this beat for a while, haven't you?" His tone is calm, but there's an unmistakable undercurrent, like a teacher questioning a student who's already failed the test. Malloy swallows hard. "Couple years," he mutters. "What's your point?" My point, Cross says, taking another step closer, is that you seem to think the uniform gives you a license to demean people in public, especially people you think have no way of pushing back. The onlookers are still there. Some have inched closer, forming a loose semicircle. The red dots from recording phones blink steadily, documenting every word, every flicker of expression. Malloy glances at them and then back at Cross. Look, maybe I came off the wrong way. I didn't know. That's exactly the problem, Cross interrupts. You didn't know, you didn't care to know, you assumed. And those assumptions tell me more about how you treat the people on this street than any report or patrol log could. The crowd is silent except for the faint hum of traffic in the distance. Malloy shifts uncomfortably, adjusting his belt. All right, what do you want from me? Cross lets the question hang in the air for a moment. Right now, I want you to understand that I'm not just here as a federal agent. I'm here because I've been investigating patterns of misconduct in this precinct, patterns that line up with what I just saw from you. Malloy's face pales. Misconduct? You can't just… I can, Cross cuts in, his tone sharpening for the first time. And I will. You see, I've been out here for weeks, watching, listening. And today, you handed me exactly what I needed, an unfiltered example of how you interact with the people you swore to protect. The tension in the air has shifted entirely. Malloy isn't the aggressor anymore. He's the one on the defensive, surrounded by witnesses who are no longer just passers-by, but potential statements in an official investigation. One of the bystanders, a young woman in a denim jacket, speaks up. I got the whole thing on video, she says, her voice steady. If you need it. Cross nods once, his expression unreadable. Hold on to it for now. I'll be in touch. Malloy's gaze darts from Cross to the woman and back again. His jaw tightens. So what happens now? What happens, Cross says, is that you're going to walk away from this sidewalk. You're going to take a few days off, voluntarily, and then you're going to come downtown and have a conversation with Internal Affairs. I'll be there too. Malloy's voice rises slightly. You think you can just tell me… Cross steps forward, closing the gap between them. Yes, he says, his voice low but firm. I can. Because right now, Officer Malloy, you're not the one calling the shots. For a long moment, neither man moves. Then Malloy takes a slow step back. His eyes flick toward the cameras again, and he realizes there's no way to spin this in his favor. Not here. Not now. Fine, he mutters, the words sounding more like surrender than agreement. He turns and walks toward his cruiser, the sound of his boots on the pavement louder than it should be. The crowd begins to disperse, murmuring among themselves. Some look at Cross with curiosity, others with a newfound respect. But Cross isn't here for applause. He picks up the paper cup he had set aside earlier, placing it into a nearby trash bin. Then he starts walking. Not toward the FBI field office, not toward any obvious destination, but deeper into the city's side streets. He has more work to do, more threads to follow. Because Malloy isn't the only officer on this beat who treats the city's most vulnerable as props for his own ego. And if Cross's instincts are right, this encounter will be the spark that exposes something far bigger. In the shadow of an overpass, Cross pauses. He takes out his phone, dials a secure number, and waits. When the line clicks, he speaks just 2 words. It started. The night settles over Riverside like a heavy blanket, the streetlights flickering to life one by one. From a distance, the city looks calm. Rows of lights stretching toward the horizon, the hum of traffic muted by distance. But Daniel Cross knows better. The real stories hide in the unlit corners, where voices are hushed and deals are made without a handshake. Cross moves through the back streets with practiced ease. The army jacket, worn and faded, still clings to his shoulders, blending him into the patchwork of shadows along the alley walls. Out here, he's not an FBI agent in the public eye. He's just another face among the invisible, someone the city's power players believe they can ignore. He rounds a corner into a narrow side alley behind a liquor store. A familiar figure waits for him there. Harper, his handler, and one of the few people who knows the full scope of this operation. She's leaning against a dumpster, a black beanie pulled low over her ears. You made an impression today, she says quietly. Cross raises an eyebrow. You saw? Everyone saw. That video's already online. Views are climbing by the hour. Officer Malloy's name is in the comments, and people are connecting dots we didn't even have to spell out. Cross doesn't smile. Viral attention can be a weapon, but it can also be a liability. That means we're on the clock, he says. Malloy will run to his friends. They'll try to close ranks before anyone starts asking the wrong questions. Harper nods. Which is why we move now. We've got confirmation on 2 other names, officers with similar complaints filed against them. Guess which precinct they're in? Cross doesn't have to guess. Malloy's. Bingo, Harper says. She pulls a folded piece of paper from her jacket and hands it to him. These are the latest IA reports. Nothing public yet, but it's ugly. Patterns of intimidation, false charges, property seizures. It's a list long enough to keep a federal courtroom busy for a year. Cross studies the paper under the dim light spilling from the liquor store's back door. Each line is another story, another person who thought speaking up would change something, only to find themselves facing the full weight of a corrupt badge. They're not careful, Cross says. They think fear is enough to keep people quiet. Harper tucks her hands into her pockets. It has been, until now. A car engine growls at the far end of the alley. Cross and Harper both glance toward the sound, their instincts sharpening. A black sedan slows as it passes the opening, its tinted windows revealing nothing. Then it turns the corner and disappears. Think that's for us? Harper asks. Cross shakes his head slowly. Not yet, but they'll be watching. They step out of the alley and into the main street, blending with a small group of pedestrians. Cross's posture shifts, slightly hunched, eyes downward, the subtle transformation of a man who knows how to be noticed just enough to seem harmless, but never enough to draw suspicion. 2 blocks away, they enter a small diner. The bell above the door jingles, and the smell of coffee and frying bacon wraps around them. A waitress greets them with a nod, guiding them to a booth in the back where the noise from the kitchen will muffle their words. Cross orders coffee. Harper does the same. When the waitress leaves, Harper leans forward. So, what's the next move? We build a map, Cross says. Names, dates, incidents, not just the officers, everyone connected to them. The DA who looks the other way, the bail bondsman who always gets the right clients out fast, the landlords who profit when tenants get evicted on bogus charges. Harper pulls a small tablet from her bag and opens a file. I've started plotting the connections. It's like a spider web, and Malloy's not even in the center. He's just one of the bigger flies caught in it. Cross studies the screen. Lines and dots connect like constellations, each one representing a person or institution playing their part in a quiet system of exploitation. It's not chaos. It's organized, intentional. They've been doing this for years, Cross says, his voice low, which means they've gotten comfortable. That's when people make mistakes. The waitress returns with 2 steaming mugs. Cross takes a sip, the bitterness grounding him. We don't hit them head on, he continues. We cut around the edges first, remove their support until the ones in the middle start to feel the ground shake. Harper smiles faintly. That's your specialty, isn't it? Before Cross can answer, his phone vibrates. It's an encrypted message. New development, Malloy's been pulled from street duty. He's at the precinct now, meeting behind closed doors. Cross slips the phone back into his pocket. They're moving faster than I thought. Harper raises an eyebrow. Good or bad? Both, Cross says. It means they're scared, but scared people make rash moves. We have to be ready when they do. Outside the diner window, the city hums on. Traffic lights cycling, pedestrians crossing, the faint wail of a distant siren. To most, it's just another night in Riverside, but to Cross, it's the opening act of something much bigger. The kind of storm you don't see until you're already standing in the middle of it. The precinct on Jefferson Avenue looks calm from the outside. Neatly parked squad cars, a thin plume of cigarette smoke curling from the side entrance where 2 officers lean against the wall. But inside, the air is thick with tension. Officer Trent Malloy sits in a small conference room, his elbows on the table, his hands clasped tightly together. Across from him, Captain Roy Delaney flips through a thin stack of papers without looking up. You understand the situation you've put us in? Delaney says finally, his voice low but edged with steel. Malloy shifts in his chair. It's being blown out of proportion. I didn't know who he was. Just some street guy giving me attitude. Delaney slams the folder shut. Some street guy? Trent, that street guy is a federal agent. Do you have any idea what that means for us? For this department? Malloy doesn't answer. His jaw tightens, his eyes dropping to the tabletop. Delaney leans back, studying him. They've already sent someone from Internal Affairs. They're sniffing around. And you, he points a finger like it's a loaded weapon, have given them a very public reason to start digging. Malloy finally looks up. So what do you want me to do? Quit? Delaney's expression hardens. Not yet, but you're off street duty, effective immediately. Malloy swallows his protest. It's not just about being sidelined, it's about the message it sends to everyone else in the building. Once you're pulled off the street, you're halfway to the exit. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Daniel Cross sits in the corner of a cramped safe-house apartment. The blinds are drawn, the hum of an old refrigerator filling the silence. He's reviewing the footage from the sidewalk encounter, frame by frame, cataloging every detail. The angle of Malloy's stance, the exact words spoken, the faces in the crowd. Every piece could be useful later. A knock at the door breaks his focus. Harper steps inside, a laptop tucked under her arm. "They've benched him," she says without preamble. "I know," Cross replies. "Someone tipped me." Harper sets the laptop on the table and opens it. "It's more than that. Delaney called a meeting with two other officers we've been watching, Rourke and Benson. Both have complaints on record, both connected to the same eviction cases we flagged last month." Cross leans forward, eyes scanning the grainy surveillance stills. Harper pulls up. In one, Rourke stands outside a rundown apartment building, talking to a landlord they've seen before in the web of connections. In another, Benson escorts a handcuffed tenant into the back of a patrol car, an arrest that never made it into the official logs. "They're worried," Cross says. "They're trying to tighten control before we get any closer." Harper nods. "Which is why I think it's time we make contact with one of the tenants, someone who's already lost everything because of them. If we can get a statement on record." Cross cuts her off with a slight shake of his head. "Not just a statement. We need proof they can't bury. Something they can't explain away in a press release." He stands, pacing the small room. "They think Malloy was a mistake. I want them to realize he was just the beginning." Across town, in a dimly lit apartment, a man named Leonard Price sits at his kitchen table. The eviction notice is still pinned to the wall, its edges curling from the humidity. He's lived here for 12 years, until 2 months ago, when a knock at the door turned his life upside down. Two officers, one of them Rourke, claimed they had a warrant for his arrest over unpaid fines. By the time Leonard proved the fines were already cleared, his apartment had been entered, his locks changed, and his belongings tossed into a dumpster. Now he's got nothing but a mattress on the floor and a few dishes in the sink. But tonight, there's another knock at his door. When he opens it, a man in a worn army jacket stands there, his eyes steady but not unkind. "Leonard Price?" the man asks. "That's me," Leonard says cautiously. "My name's Daniel Cross. I think we need to talk." They sit at the kitchen table, the room dim except for the yellow glow from a single bulb. Cross listens as Leonard tells his story. Every detail, every time Rourke's name comes up. When Leonard finishes, Cross slides a small recorder across the table. "Would you be willing to tell that again? On the record?" Leonard hesitates. "If I do, what happens to me?" Cross meets his eyes. "If you do, we protect you. We make sure they can't touch you again." After a long pause, Leonard nods. "All right, let's do it." Back at the precinct, Delaney's office door closes. Inside, Rourke and Benson sit across from him, their faces tight. "We've got a problem," Delaney says. "Malloy's incident has stirred up noise. I want you two to keep things quiet. Anyone starts asking questions about the eviction cases, you shut it down. Got it?" They nod, but there's a flicker of unease in their eyes. Outside these walls, the story is already spreading, and Daniel Cross is about to make sure it can't be contained. Leonard's voice is steady at first, but as the recorder captures every word, his anger starts to bleed through. The details are too specific to be imagined. The date and time Rourke and Benson arrived, the way Rourke smirked when Leonard protested, the sound of his lock being drilled out while Benson searched his apartment for evidence that never existed. Cross doesn't interrupt. He just lets Leonard speak, letting the silence fill in the weight between each sentence. When Leonard finishes, Cross clicks the recorder off and sits back in his chair. "This isn't just your story," Cross says quietly. "This is a pattern. And patterns can bring down careers." Leonard leans forward. "You think they'll actually pay for what they've done?" "They will," Cross replies, "but we have to move carefully. If they see this coming, they'll destroy every scrap of evidence we can use." From the other room, Harper's voice calls out, "Danny, you need to hear this." Cross and Leonard step into the living room where Harper is hunched over her laptop. On the screen is a news clip, footage from the day Malloy laughed at Cross, now playing on a major network. The anchor's voice cuts through the static. has prompted an internal affairs review of several cases tied to officers in the Jefferson Avenue precinct. Sources say more federal involvement could be coming. Cross exhales slowly. The story is moving faster than he expected. That's good for public pressure, but it also means the people he's targeting will feel cornered sooner. And cornered men make dangerous choices. Leonard watches the screen, a faint flicker of hope in his eyes. Maybe this is it, he says. Maybe people will finally see what's been happening. Cross doesn't answer. He's already thinking ahead. Do you have anything from the day they evicted you? Photos? Papers? Leonard nods toward a small cardboard box in the corner. Everything I could grab before they threw me out. Cross kneels beside the box, sorting through its contents. Crumpled letters, utility bills, an old wallet. Then he finds it. A cheap prepaid cell phone with a cracked screen. Leonard shrugs. It was in my jacket that day. I didn't realize it recorded until later. Audio's not great, but you can hear them talking while they're in my apartment. Harper's eyes widen. That could be enough to tie them directly to the eviction without a warrant. Cross pockets the phone. Then we get it cleaned up and transcribed. That audio goes to IA and the U.S. Attorney's Office, not the local DA. They're too close to all of this. Later that night, Cross sits in the safe house with headphones over his ears, playing the audio again and again. The voices are muffled, but Rourke's tone is distinct. Cocky, dismissive. Benson's voice cuts in at one point. Don't bother with that. He's not coming back. Locks are changed. Landlord's already paid up. Cross writes every word down. In this business, you don't get many chances at a clean link between crime and perpetrator. This one is almost gift-wrapped. Meanwhile, at the precinct, Rourke and Benson sit in the locker room speaking in low voices. You hear Malloy's still on leave? Benson asks. Rourke snorts. Guy brought it on himself, but Delaney's right. We gotta keep the heat off us. Benson glances around before leaning closer. What if they've already got something? That FBI guy? What's his deal? Rourke shakes his head. Doesn't matter. We stick to the story. Anything comes up, we call Delaney first. Got it? But even as he says it, there's a crack in his confidence. The encounter with Cross has shifted the air in ways they can't quite measure yet. The next morning, Harper delivers the cleaned-up audio file to Cross. It's good, she says. You can hear everything. Cross loads the file onto a secure drive and makes 3 encrypted copies. One goes to Internal Affairs, one to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the third he locks away in a hidden compartment in the safe house. You think they'll act fast? Harper asks. They'll have to, Cross replies. Once this is in the system, it's evidence. They can't ignore it without risking their own necks. By midday, IA agents are walking into the Jefferson Avenue precinct. Delaney greets them with a politician's smile, but his eyes are hard. The agents go straight to the conference room, calling in Rourke and Benson one at a time. From a coffee shop across the street, Cross watches through a pair of binoculars tucked discreetly into his bag. He can't hear what's being said, but he can read the tension in their movements. Tight shoulders, quick glances toward the door. Leonard sits beside him, sipping a coffee slowly. Feels strange watching it from out here, he says. Cross keeps his eyes on the building. Sometimes the best view is from the outside. That's where you can see the whole board. Inside, Benson leaves the conference room first, his face pale. Rourke follows 10 minutes later, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the floor. Whatever was said in that room has rattled them both. Harper joins them at the table. Just got a message. IA's pulling case files from the last 3 years. All evictions, all charges. This is going deep. Cross nods slowly. Good. That's the first crack in the wall. Now we keep pressing until it comes down. He doesn't say the rest out loud, that once the wall collapses, the people hiding behind it won't have anywhere left to run. The Jefferson Avenue precinct feels like a building holding its breath. The morning after Internal Affairs pulled those case files, no one is talking in the hallways. Conversations that used to be loud and casual are now whispered, cut short when certain people walk by. Captain Delaney's office door stays closed most of the day. When it does open, the people coming out look like they've been through an interrogation. Rourke and Benson keep to themselves, avoiding eye contact even with their usual allies. Malloy sits at a desk in the corner, shuffling papers he doesn't care about. He's technically still on the payroll, but everyone knows he's been benched. The coffee incident with Cross has turned him into both a liability and a symbol, a reminder that one bad moment can spiral into a career-ending disaster. Across the street, Daniel Cross sits in the back booth of a diner, his jacket collar turned up to blend in with the morning crowd. Harper slides into the seat across from him, placing a manila folder on the table. They're moving faster than I thought, she says. IA found irregularities in almost half the eviction cases from the past year. And get this, the same two landlords' names keep popping up. Cross opens the folder, scanning the documents inside. They're partners in this, he says. Landlords pay off the officers clear out tenants. Everyone makes money except the people losing their homes. Harper nods. And Delaney's name comes up in emails between the landlords. They talk about him like he's the guy keeping the gears turning. Cross leans back, considering. If we can tie him to the payoffs directly, we don't just take down a few dirty cops, we take down the man who's been protecting them. Harper lowers her voice. That means going after the money. And you know they'll be watching for anyone sniffing around their accounts. Cross smirks faintly. Then we don't sniff. We rip the whole rug out from under them before they know we're in the room. At that same moment, Delaney is on a phone call in his office. His voice is calm, but his grip on the receiver is tight. We've handled worse, he says into the line. This will pass. Just keep your head down and don't put anything in writing. He listens for a moment, then adds, if IA wants to dig, let them. We'll bury them in paperwork until they lose interest. But Delaney doesn't sound convinced, even to himself. He hangs up and stares at the stack of files on his desk, the same files IA has been pulling apart. For the first time in years, he feels the edges of control slipping away. That afternoon, Leonard Price gets a call from Harper. They're trying to reach out to you, she says. Someone from the precinct left a message asking if you'd be willing to clear up some misunderstandings. Leonard laughs bitterly. Misunderstandings? They threw me out of my home. Harper's voice hardens. It's a trap. They want you to recant before this goes further. Ignore it. Leonard agrees, but the call leaves him uneasy. The precinct knows he's talking, and that makes him a target. Cross meets him later that day in a quiet park, away from cameras and microphones. They might try to intimidate you, he warns. If they show up anywhere near your place, you call me immediately. Don't engage them. Leonard nods. I'm not backing down if that's what you're worried about. I'm not, Cross says, but they're unpredictable when they feel the walls closing in. That evening, Harper runs the landlords' names through a federal database. It takes hours, but eventually she finds something. A series of shell companies tied to offshore accounts, each one linked to deposits matching the dates of major eviction sweeps in Riverside. She prints the records and lays them out on the table in the safe house. Cross studies them silently, tracing the lines with his finger. This is it, he says finally. The money trail. Problem is, Harper replies, we can't subpoena the accounts without tipping them off. And if they catch wind, they'll move the funds before we can freeze them. Cross thinks for a moment. Then we get someone inside. Someone they trust enough to let into the room where the deals happen. Harper tilts her head. You volunteering? Cross's faint smile is answer enough. Meanwhile, in a quiet bar on the west side of the city, Rourke meets one of the landlords. They speak in low voices, but the tension between them is obvious. You said this was handled, the landlord hisses. It is, Rourke says. IA's just posturing. Give it a week, they'll move on. The landlord doesn't look convinced. I'm not paying you to gamble with my business. If they come for me, I'm taking you down with me. Rourke's jaw tightens, but he says nothing. He leaves the bar without finishing his drink, his mind already working through what it would take to cover himself if the whole system collapses. Back at the safe house, Cross is already planning the next move. The names, the accounts, the connections, they're all there. Now it's about timing. Move too soon and the targets scatter. Move too late, and someone else buries the evidence. Harper pours 2 cups of coffee and sets one in front of him. You think we can pull this off before they realize what's happening? Cross stares at the web of names on the table. We have to, because once they know I'm not just some homeless guy, the clock runs out. The plan comes together over a single night, mapped out in coffee-stained notepads and on the back of receipts. Cross has been undercover in a dozen different operations, but this one feels different, closer to home. It's not a drug cartel or an international smuggling ring. It's a group of men wearing badges, using the law as a weapon against the very people they swore to protect. The next morning, Harper hands him a folded piece of paper. This is the contact. Name's Miles Kearney, runs security for one of the landlords. Former cop, washed out after a brutality case, but still has friends in the precinct. He's the kind of guy who'll open doors if he thinks there's money in it for him. Cross tucks the paper into his pocket and heads out. The meeting is at a small boxing gym in the industrial district. The kind of place where the smell of sweat and leather never leaves the walls. Miles is there, leaning against the ropes, watching a young fighter work a heavy bag. "You Cross?" he asks without looking up. "I'm someone who can help you make a lot of money," Cross replies evenly. That gets Miles's attention. He steps down from the ring, sizing Cross up. "You don't look like much." "I'm not supposed to," Cross says. "That's how I get into places other people can't. And right now, you need someone invisible to handle a problem you can't put your hands on." Miles's eyes narrow. "What kind of problem?" Cross doesn't hesitate. "IA, feds, paper trails, the kind of heat that makes people nervous. I can make sure certain records disappear before the wrong people see them." Miles studies him for a long moment, then smirks. "You talk like you've done this before." "I have," Cross says simply. Miles doesn't agree to anything on the spot, but he doesn't walk away either. "Come back tomorrow, same time. We'll see if you're worth bringing in." Back at the safe house, Harper listens to the recording from Cross's wire. "He's interested," she says, "but he's not going to hand you the keys yet. You need to give him a taste." Cross nods. "Tomorrow, I make him believe I've already got dirt on IA. Once he trusts me, he'll walk me straight into a meeting with the landlords." While Cross is setting the stage, the precinct is unraveling faster than Delaney anticipated. Internal Affairs has requested all officers submit financial disclosure statements, something that hasn't happened in years. Rumors are flying about sealed indictments and federal subpoenas. In the locker room, Benson corners Rourke. "If this goes bad, I'm not going down with you. I've got a family." Rourke glares at him. "You think they'll spare you? We're all tied to this. The only way out is to make sure nothing sticks." "What about the FBI guy?" Benson asks. "If he's still in play, then we handle him," Rourke says, the words slow and deliberate. "Before he handles us." That night, Leonard notices a car parked down the block from his apartment. Same car, 2 nights in a row. He calls Harper immediately. "Don't open your door for anyone," she tells him. "We'll have someone watching the place by morning." Leonard hesitates. "You think they're trying to scare me?" "They're trying to figure out if you'll break," Harper says. "Don't give them the satisfaction." The following day, Cross returns to the boxing gym. Miles is waiting, arms crossed. "You got something for me?" Miles asks. Cross pulls a small envelope from his pocket. Inside are photocopies of fake, internal memos Harper created, suggesting IA is about to freeze several accounts linked to the landlords. The names are real, the dates plausible, but the source is pure fabrication, enough to bait Miles without giving away actual investigation details. Miles flips through the pages, his grin widening. This is exactly what we need. Come on, there's someone you should meet." They leave the gym and drive across the city to an upscale restaurant. In a private back room, 2 men are already seated. Cross recognizes them immediately from Harper's files. Vincent Hale and Dominic Russo, the landlords at the center of the operation. Miles introduces them, leaving out any detail about Cross's true identity. "This is the guy I told you about. Knows how to make problems disappear." Russo eyes Cross with open skepticism. "And why should we trust you?" Cross meets his gaze. "Because the people coming for you don't even know I exist. I can move through their systems without tripping alarms, but only if I'm inside your circle." Hale leans forward. "If you're for real, there's a ledger we need gone. It's in a safe at the precinct. We can't touch it without raising flags. You get it out, you'll have more work than you can handle." Cross keeps his expression neutral, but inside, his mind is already turning. That ledger could be the smoking gun tying every payoff, every illegal eviction straight back to Delaney. "I'll need a week," Cross says. Russo smirks. "You've got 3 days." When Cross leaves the restaurant, Harper is waiting in a car down the block. "Well?" she asks. "They just handed me the key to their whole operation," Cross says, sliding into the passenger seat. "All I have to do now is steal it." But he knows it won't be that simple. The moment he touches that ledger, the game changes. The landlords will see him as an asset, but the dirty cops will see him as a threat they can't allow to live. 3 days isn't much time to infiltrate a police precinct, locate a safe, and remove its most incriminating piece of evidence without setting off alarms. But for Cross, the compressed timeline only sharpens his focus. He's been in tighter spots before. This time, the stakes just happen to be personal. Harper spreads a set of blueprints across the safe house table. "This is the precinct layout," she says, tapping a corner of the map. The safe is in an evidence storage room behind Delaney's office. 2 cameras, motion sensor inside the door. you'll need to bypass both without leaving a trace. Cross studies the lines, noting access points and potential choke points. Best entry is after midnight when the skeleton crew's on shift. But I'll need a distraction, something to pull the patrol officers away from the upper floor for at least 10 minutes. Harper smirks. I might know a guy who can stage a believable emergency without getting himself arrested. Leonard, who's been quietly listening, raises an eyebrow. You're talking about me, aren't you? Cross gives a faint grin. You've got a way of drawing their attention. You just need to be somewhere public, say across the street, making enough noise for them to take interest. Leonard doesn't hesitate. If it helps take these people down, I'm in. The plan is set. Harper will handle the security feed, looping the relevant cameras to show empty hallways. Leonard will create the diversion. Cross will slip in, crack the safe, and get out before anyone knows he was there. The night of the job, rain slicks the streets, masking the sound of footsteps. At exactly 12:07 a.m., Leonard positions himself on the sidewalk outside the precinct, holding a stack of fake eviction notices Harper printed. He shouts about corruption, demanding the officers inside come out and face him. Within minutes, 2 uniformed cops appear, followed by a third, all moving to calm the disturbance. Inside, Cross moves like a shadow. His FBI credentials would open any door here if he wanted to use them, but that would leave a trail. Tonight, he's just another ghost in the system. He reaches the evidence room door and slips on a pair of gloves. From his pocket, he pulls a small device, pressing it against the lock. There's a faint click as the mechanism disengages. The motion sensor inside hums softly, but Harper's voice comes through his earpiece. Sensor looped. You're clear for 6 minutes. Cross steps inside, his eyes immediately finding the steel safe in the corner. It's old but well-maintained, mechanical, not digital, which means no hacking shortcut. He kneels, spinning the dial, feeling the faintest changes in resistance. Outside, the sound of Leonard's voice still echoes faintly through the walls. The safe opens in under 3 minutes. Inside, stacked ledgers, a few envelopes, and a hard drive. Cross pulls out the ledger marked Special Accounts, RH. The initials match one of the landlords, Russo Hale. Every instinct tells him this is the heart of the operation. He tucks the ledger into his jacket, takes the hard drive for good measure, and closes the safe exactly as he found it. By the time the patrol officers return upstairs, Cross is already in the stairwell, blending into the shadows. Back at the safe house, Harper scans the ledger under bright light. This is it, she says. Dates, amounts, property addresses, it's all here. And look at this, Delaney's initials next to every major payment. They didn't even bother hiding it. Leonard leans over her shoulder. That's my building, he says, pointing to one entry. Right there, the week they threw me out. Cross nods. Now we can prove it in court, but we're not handing this over just yet. Harper looks up. Why not? Because if we turn it in now, they'll know exactly what we have and start cutting deals before anyone can build a full case. We need to map out every connection, every dirty cop, every landlord and politician on their payroll. Once we have the whole web, we drop it all at once. No one walks away clean. While they work through the night, the ripple effect of the ledger's disappearance is already hitting the precinct. Delaney storms into the evidence room at dawn, demanding to know why the safe looks off. The officer on duty swears he hasn't touched it. Rourke and Benson exchange uneasy glances in the hallway. Benson mutters, "You think this is that guy? The one Malloy was laughing at?" Rourke clenches his jaw. If it is, he just signed his own death warrant. By mid-morning, word reaches Miles Kearney. He calls Cross on a burner phone. The job's done? Cross keeps his tone casual. Ledger's gone. You'll hear about it soon enough. Miles chuckles. You might be more useful than I thought. The bosses will want to see you again. This time at a place they trust. Harper listens in on the call, her expression tight. That's your in. But it's also the moment they'll test you. They'll either bring you deeper or try to cut you out for good. Cross knows she's right. The deeper he gets, the closer he is to pulling the entire operation apart, but also the closer he is to becoming a target no badge or title can protect. That night, as rain still falls over the city, Cross sits alone in the safe house, flipping through the ledger page by page. The names aren't just landlords and officers, they include city inspectors, court clerks, even a judge. The corruption runs deeper than he thought. He closes the book and leans back, the weight of it settling in his chest. This isn't just about exposing a racist cop who laughed at a homeless man. It's about dismantling an entire machine built to grind down the powerless. And now, with the ledger in his hands, he holds the key to every cog in that machine. The question is, how many more moves can he make before the machine realizes it's under attack? The meeting place isn't a back alley or a dimly lit bar. It's the kind of private club where the walls are paneled in dark oak and the air smells faintly of expensive cigars. Cross knows the choice of venue is deliberate. Russo and Hale want to send a message. They're not just landlords, they're power brokers, comfortable enough to flaunt their influence in plain sight. Miles Kearney meets him outside. "No weapons inside," he says, patting Cross down more out of habit than suspicion. "Keep your answers short and your eyes open." Inside, Russo sits at the head of a polished mahogany table. Hale is beside him, sipping whiskey like it's mid-afternoon. Across from them are two men Cross hasn't seen before, one in an impeccably tailored suit, the other in a police captain's uniform with no name tag. The captain's presence confirms what Cross already suspected. The rot isn't contained to just a few officers. Russo gestures to the empty chair. "Sit. We've been talking about your little, success." Cross takes the seat, keeping his posture relaxed. "You needed the ledger gone. It's gone." Hale smirks. "And the hard drive?" "Also gone," Cross says. "Nobody's going to find either unless I want them to." The man in the suit leans forward. "That kind of skill doesn't come cheap. What's your price?" Crossban is get through rugs. "Depends on the job." Russo's voice hardens. "The job is making sure we don't have to deal with internal affairs again. Ever. That means taking certain people out of the equation before they become a problem." Cross lets a pause hang in the air. "And by out of the equation, you mean?" Hale's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "We're not saying kill anyone. Just make them disappear. Discredit them. Break their connections. Make their lives too messy to focus on us." Cross nods slowly, as if weighing the ethics of a job like that. Inside, his mind is already cataloging every word, every face, storing it for the moment when the hammer drops. The captain speaks for the first time. "One of our guys, Malloy, has been a loose end since that coffee stunt. We need to know if he's still talking to IA. If he is, we need you to make sure he's no longer credible." Cross knows the irony. Malloy was the one who started this whole chain of events. "Consider it done," he says. The meeting winds down with vague promises of future work. Miles walks him out, lighting a cigarette as they step into the drizzle. "They like you," Miles says. "That's good, but it also means they'll expect more from you. Fail them once, and you won't walk away." Back at the safe house, Harper is already waiting. "So, how deep are you in?" Cross drops into a chair. "Deep enough that they're asking me to neutralize one of their own. Malloy's the target. They think he might be flipping." Harper frowns. "If we move on Malloy, we lose the one guy in their circle dumb enough to talk." "That's why we don't move on him," Cross says. "We move him closer." The next day, Cross finds Malloy at a dingy sports bar nursing a beer. The man looks older than his years, worn down by weeks of being frozen out by the very department he served. "They're coming for you," Cross says without preamble. Malloy glances up, suspicion in his eyes. "And you'd know that how?" "Because they asked me to do it." Malloy freezes. "You?" Cross leans in. "You want to survive this, you're going to play along. Let them think I've ruined you. Meanwhile, you feed me everything you know. Names, dates, payoffs. We can take them down together." Malloy studies him for a long moment, then nods. "I've got nothing left to lose." Over the next 48 hours, Cross engineers a public spectacle, a staged argument with Malloy in a parking lot, loud enough for a planted witness to overhear incriminating accusations. The rumor spreads fast. Malloy's credibility is shot. To Russo and Hale, it looks like Cross delivered. Harper works in the background, cross-referencing Malloy's intel with the ledger's entries. Patterns emerge, payments disguised as maintenance fees, kickbacks funneled through shell companies, court cases mysteriously reassigned to friendly judges. But as the evidence builds, so does the danger. One evening, Leonard calls with urgency in his voice. "Two guys came to my door, didn't say who they were, but they knew my name. They told me to stop talking to anyone about the eviction." Harper is already on her feet. "You need to get out of there. Now." They relocate Leonard to a safe location, but the message is clear. The circle is tightening. That night, Cross meets Miles again, this time in the back lot of a warehouse. Miles hands him a thick envelope. Payment for the Malloy job, and a warning. "Russo's got his eye on you. You're either in for the long haul, or you're out. Decide fast." Cross takes the envelope without looking inside. Tell him I'm in. As he walks away, the weight in his pocket isn't the cash. It's the knowledge that every step forward brings him closer to the endgame. The only question is whether he'll still be standing when it arrives. In the safe house later, Harper spreads out the intel they've gathered so far. We've got enough to start indictments now, she says. Cross shakes his head. Not yet. We don't just want Russo and Hale. We want Delaney. We want the captain. We want every single name in this network. And we only get one shot. Outside, the city hums with its usual indifference. Inside, the war is nearing its boiling point. By the time the sun rises over the city, Cross knows the clock is ticking faster. Every conversation with Russo, Hale, or the captain is a calculated gamble. One wrong word, one inconsistent detail, and they'll smell blood. The only way to survive is to keep feeding them just enough wins to stay in their good graces while quietly dismantling their operation from the inside. Harper has been piecing together the network map for weeks now, pinning photographs, company logos, and handwritten notes across an entire wall of the safe house. It's a spiderweb of influence. Landlords, police officers, lawyers, politicians, even a handful of journalists who've been paid to bury stories. At the center are three faces: Delaney, Russo, and Hale. They're the heart, Harper says, standing back with her arms crossed. Take them out, the rest collapses. Taking them out is the easy part, Cross says. Making sure none of their people rebuild the machine, that's the challenge. The next move comes from an unexpected angle. Miles calls in the middle of the night. The bosses want you at a sit-down tomorrow, bigger than before. You're not the only one they're bringing in. That sets off alarms in Cross's mind. Who else? Some new muscle, guy from out of town. Heard he used to run collections for a crew in Philly. They want him to work with you. Cross doesn't like it. An outsider means fewer predictable behaviors, more chances for the plan to go sideways. Still, declining isn't an option. Tell them I'll be there. The following evening, the meeting takes place in a high-rise penthouse overlooking the river. The new arrival, Victor Kane, is built like a brick wall and carries himself like a man who enjoys intimidation. Russo introduces him as insurance for an upcoming job. This one's different, Russo says, lighting a cigar. We've got a problem property, a tenant who won't leave, and a judge who keeps delaying the eviction. We need both problems solved, quietly. Cross keeps his expression neutral. You want me to handle the judge? Handle both, Hale interjects. The tenant's some kind of activist. If we let her stay, others will think they can get away with it. Kane grins. I've got ideas for that. The meeting shifts to logistics, but Cross isn't listening to Kane's methods. He's watching the room, memorizing every detail. The judge's name, the address of the property, the subtle way the captain avoids making eye contact when legal intimidation is discussed. Back at the safe house, Harper pulls up files on the judge in question. He's clean, she says. No bribes, no shady rulings. If they're targeting him, it's because he's standing in their way. Then we flip this, Cross says. We warn the judge, make him part of the operation. If he's willing to go on record, we can use him to tie the landlords to obstruction of justice. They arrange a discreet meeting in the judge's chambers after hours. Cross doesn't reveal his badge right away. He lays out the threat, the names involved, and the pattern of cases that have been quietly sabotaged. When he finally shows the FBI credentials, the judge exhales slowly. I suspected as much, he says. You'll have my cooperation, but if they realize I'm helping you, they won't, Cross assures him. We'll feed them a false trail, make them think you've been pressured into compliance. While Harper crafts fake documents to support the ruse, Cross has another problem. Kane. The man's reckless and clearly enjoys the fear he inspires. Worse, he's already asking questions about Cross's background. 2 nights later, Kane corners him in a parking garage after a meeting. You don't talk like a street guy, Kane says. You talk like a cop. Cross meets his gaze. And you talk too much for someone who's supposed to be watching my back. Kane smirks, but there's an edge in his eyes. We'll see who's watching who. The tension doesn't go unnoticed. Miles calls again, his tone lower than usual. The bosses are getting curious. Kane's been in their ear. If you're going to cement your place, you need a big win. Soon. That win comes in the form of a warehouse raid. Russo claims the property is being used by a rival group to store counterfeit goods. What he doesn't say is that the goods are actually stolen electronics meant for resale through a network of pawn shops. The plan is for Cross and Kane to lead the operation, make a show of force, and scare off anyone connected to the rival crew. Harper hates it. Too many variables, too many guns. If something goes wrong, you'll be caught in the middle of an actual felony. That's why it won't go wrong, Cross says. We control the timing, control the narrative. On the night of the raid, Cross makes sure to arrive early. He plants a small camera near the entrance and positions Harper in a van a block away, monitoring both the live feed and police radio. Kane arrives with 2 other enforcers, all carrying blunt weapons and wearing gloves. We go in hard, scare them off, load the goods, Kane says. They burst through the warehouse door, but instead of a rival crew, they find the place empty, except for the city's property crime unit already waiting. Police, drop it! Kane freezes. Cross steps forward, pulling out his FBI badge in one smooth motion. Federal operation, stand down. The property crime officers exchange glances. Cross walks over, handing one of them a sealed envelope, a prearranged cooperation order Harper had secured. It's enough to make them back off without asking too many questions. Kane is furious on the drive back. You set this up, he growls. Cross just smiles faintly. Or maybe your intel was bad. Either way, no one got arrested. You're welcome. By the time they report back to Russo and Hale, the story has been spun into a victory. Kane secured the goods. Cross ensured no law enforcement interference. The landlords are pleased, the captain relieved, and Kane forced to swallow his suspicion for now. But Cross knows the balance won't hold forever. Every success buys him a little more trust, but also a little more scrutiny. And somewhere in the shadows, Kane is waiting for the first crack to appear. Kane's suspicion doesn't fade. It festers. Cross can feel it in the way Kane watches him during meetings, in the way his questions dig deeper than casual curiosity. If Kane decides to push harder, things could spiral fast. But Cross knows something Kane doesn't. Every man in this operation has a weakness, and Kane's is about to be exposed. Harper starts digging. It doesn't take long before she uncovers a trail. Unpaid debts from Kane's time in Philadelphia, an incident with a club owner who vanished after a dispute, and a sealed court file that hints at a cooperation deal with law enforcement. Cross studies the file late into the night. If this is true, he tells Harper, Kane's not just muscle, he's a liability. And if Russo and Hale find out, they'll cut him loose. Harper leans forward. We could feed that to the right person, make Kane too busy protecting himself to focus on you. But Cross knows timing is everything. Move too soon and Kane might lash out. Wait too long and Kane might uncover something about him first. The opportunity comes during a planning session for their next job. A real estate deal designed to launder a large cash payment from one of the landlord's side businesses. Kane is bragging about his contacts in Philly when Cross casually asks a question about the old club owner. Kane freezes for half a second before laughing it off. Old news, he says, but the twitch in his jaw tells Cross he hit a nerve. Later, Cross meets Miles in a dimly lit diner. Kane's past is going to be a problem for all of us, he says. If Russo knew the full story, he'd never trust him. Miles raises an eyebrow. And you're telling me this why? Because I'm not here to clean up someone else's mess, Cross replies. If Kane gets sloppy, it drags us all down. Miles doesn't commit to anything, but Cross can see the seed has been planted. Meanwhile, Harper is making progress on the bigger picture. She's linked 3 more shell companies to Delaney, each tied to properties acquired through fraudulent evictions. We're getting close, she says, pinning new documents to the wall. One more connection between Delaney and the landlords, and we can prove the conspiracy. But the closer they get, the more dangerous things become. Leonard calls from his safe location, his voice low. Someone's been asking about me again. A man and a woman this time. Said they were looking for an old friend. Harper curses under her breath. They're tightening the noose. Cross knows they have to stay ahead. He arranges for Leonard to be moved again, this time under the radar. The relocation is clean, but it means they're burning through resources faster than expected. 2 nights later, Russo calls an unscheduled meeting. The group gathers in the same oak-paneled room as before, but the atmosphere is heavier. Russo stands at the head of the table, holding a folder. Someone's been talking, Russo says. Not to the cops yet, but to the wrong kind of people, and I intend to find out who. Cross keeps his face neutral, but his pulse slows deliberately. This is a test. Hale glances at Kane. You've been quiet lately. Anything we should know? Kane shakes his head. I've been doing my job. Russo tosses the folder onto the table. It slides toward Kane. Funny, because this says otherwise. Kane flips it open, and Cross watches the color drain from his face. Inside are photocopies of the sealed court file Harper found. For a long moment, no one speaks. Then Russo leans in. "You've got one chance to explain this." Kane stammers something about a misunderstanding, about being set up. But the room has already shifted against him. Miles finally speaks. "Maybe he's still useful, we just, keep him on a short leash." Russo considers, then nods reluctantly. "Fine, but one more slip and you're done." Cross leaves the meeting knowing two things. Kane is now too busy protecting his own skin to focus on him, and Russo's paranoia is reaching new heights. That paranoia can be used, but it also makes every move riskier. Back at the safe house, Harper smiles when Cross tells her what happened. "You've just bought yourself some breathing room." "Not much," Cross says. "They're going to push for bigger plays now, and we need to be ready to hit them before they hit us. The next job they propose is exactly that, a bigger play." Russo wants Cross to oversee the acquisition of a block of low-income housing, displacing dozens of tenants in the process. On paper, it's just business. In reality, it's a strategic land grab tied to a larger redevelopment scheme. Cross agrees, but only because it gives him the perfect cover to get close to the financial records he's been chasing. Harper will intercept the transaction trail, Malloy will feed intel from inside the department, and the judge they flipped will quietly stall any eviction orders until the FBI is ready to move. It's the most complex operation they've attempted yet, and if any part of it fails, the whole house of cards could come down, on them. But as Cross looks at the map of the target block, he feels something shift. This isn't just about taking down corrupt cops and landlords anymore. It's about the people who live in these buildings, the families who'd lose everything if the plan succeeds. He closes the file, a quiet resolve settling in. For them, for Leonard, for every person ground under the wheels of this machine, this ends here, and the next move will be the one that changes everything. The plan looks simple on the surface, but Cross knows simplicity is the most dangerous disguise. Russo and Hale have orchestrated dozens of these acquisitions, each one a blueprint of greed. They start by targeting undervalued properties in struggling neighborhoods. Then they use intimidation, legal pressure, and bribes to push out tenants. Finally, they redevelop the area, flipping it for millions. This time, the target is a cluster of old apartment buildings on the city's east side, home to families, retirees, and low-wage workers who have nowhere else to go. On paper, the deal is legitimate. A holding company buys the land, promises upgrades, then raises rents beyond affordability. But the real plan is dirtier. Cross has already seen the blueprint for the new development, luxury condos and high-end retail, a complete erasure of the community that's been there for decades. Harper lays out the mission on the safe house table. We need three things: the financial trail, the chain of ownership for the holding company, and proof that Russo and Hale are pulling the strings. If we can get those, the FBI can freeze the deal before anyone's evicted. Cross nods. And we've got a narrow window before the first eviction notices go out. Once those are served, panic sets in, and people start scattering. We need them to stay put so we can protect them. The first step is infiltration. Russo assigns Cross to inspect the property. Really just a show of force to let tenants know change is coming. Kane is supposed to tag along, but Cross arranges for Miles to keep him busy elsewhere. Instead, Cross walks the halls alone, talking to residents, making mental notes. A single mother named Mariah answers her door holding a baby on her hip. "Are you with the landlords?" she asks, her voice wary. "Something like that," Cross replies carefully. "You should know, things might get rough around here soon. Stay alert. Don't sign anything without a lawyer." Mariah studies him for a moment, then nods slowly. "We've been through this before. They always come back. But we're not leaving this time." Her words stick with him as he leaves the building. The second step is securing the financial trail. Harper hacks into the holding company's server, pulling invoices, wire transfers, and internal memos. The documents show a clear link between the company and a shell corporation registered under a cousin's name, one of Russo's favorite tricks. Even better, the payment records list consulting fees paid directly to a judge known for fast-tracking eviction cases. "That's our smoking gun," Harper says, "but it's not enough. We need someone inside the company willing to testify." That's where Malloy comes in. Still disgraced in the public eye thanks to the staged fight, Malloy has been quietly feeding Cross updates from the department. One of his latest tips is gold. The holding company's operations manager, a man named Dennis Crowley, has been grumbling about not getting his fair share. Cross arranges a meeting under the guise of offering Crowley a side deal. They meet in the back booth of a diner that smells of fried onions and stale coffee. "You don't strike me as a charity worker," Crowley says after Cross lays out a vague proposal. "I'm not," Cross replies, "but I know when someone's being shortchanged. You've been doing the heavy lifting and Russo and Hale are cashing the big checks." Crowley's eyes narrow. "And you're suggesting what? I switch sides?" "I'm suggesting you tell your story to the right people. People who can make sure you're protected and compensated." Crowley hesitates, then leans in. "If I do this, I want out. Clean slate. New name, new life." "Done," Cross says without hesitation. Within 48 hours, Harper has Crowley's signed statement along with copies of key internal memos he smuggled out. The picture is now crystal clear. Russo and Hale are laundering dirty money through property acquisitions with help from complicit judges and police officers. But before they can move, a complication hits. Hard. Leonard calls again, his voice tight with fear. "They found me." Cross's blood runs cold. "Where are you?" "In the parking lot of a grocery store. They're watching me from a black SUV." "Stay on the line," Cross says, signaling to Harper. She's already pulling up traffic cam feeds, tracking the SUV. Within minutes, Cross is on the scene. He spots Leonard leaning against a shopping cart, trying to look calm. The SUV idles nearby, 2 men inside. Cross walks straight to the vehicle, knocking on the driver's window. The man rolls it down, smirking. "Something you need, pal?" Cross flashes his FBI badge so quickly, it's almost a magic trick. The smirk vanishes. "This man is under federal protection," Cross says evenly. "If I see you anywhere near him again, I won't be knocking next time." The SUV peels out of the lot without another word. Leonard exhales shakily. "Guess I'm not as invisible as I thought." "We'll make you invisible," Cross promises. That night, Harper secures Leonard in a new safe house and adds another layer of encryption to all their communications. But the incident confirms what they already knew. The other side is getting desperate. Russo calls the next day, his tone all business. "The deal closes in 3 days. Be ready." Cross agrees, hiding the fact that those 3 days are all he and Harper need to bring the entire operation down. The FBI is ready to move, the evidence is in place, and the final piece, the eviction freeze from their cooperative judge, will land at just the right moment to expose the whole scheme. As Cross hangs up, he looks at the board on the safe house wall. Every face, every name, every connection is there. 3 days, that's all the time they have to end this. For Mariah, for Leonard, for everyone caught in the crossfire. And this time, there will be no second chances. 3 days. That's all the time Cross and Harper have to pull every thread tight and make sure the trap snaps shut exactly when they want it to. The operation has too many moving parts to count. Crowley's testimony, the financial records, the judge's eviction freeze, Malloy's inside feed, and the quiet positioning of federal agents just out of sight. If any part of it fails, the whole thing collapses. The morning of day 1, Cross meets Harper at the safe house. The wall of evidence has grown denser, pins and strings connecting faces and companies like a web waiting to close around its prey. "Crowley's in place," Harper says, sliding a burner phone across the table. "This is his direct line. He'll call when Russo gives the final order to transfer the funds." "What about our judge?" Cross asks. Harper smiles. "The eviction freeze order is signed and sealed. It'll be filed the moment the deal goes public." Day 1 is spent watching and waiting. Cross shadows Russo from a distance, careful not to be seen. Russo meets with 2 men in suits at a waterfront restaurant, developers from out of state. Cross snaps a few photos from a parked car, the camera angled just enough to catch the handshake and the briefcase exchange. Back at the safe house, Harper runs the images through facial recognition. Both of them are tied to a Miami firm that's been flagged for money laundering before. This isn't just local corruption, it's interstate. That's good news for the Bureau. It means jurisdiction is airtight, and the charges will carry real weight. Day 2 is more dangerous. Malloy tips Cross off to a late-night meeting at a closed bar owned by one of Hale's cousins. Cross goes in wearing plain clothes, taking a seat in a shadowed corner. The meeting is small, Hale, Russo, and one other man he doesn't recognize. From where he sits, Cross can hear enough. They're discussing the tenant problem in the East Side buildings. Russo wants them out before the deal closes. Hale argues that forcing the issue now will bring heat. The third man, quiet until now, finally speaks. Leave it to me. I've got a crew who can make them see reason without leaving marks. Cross memorizes his face, already planning to run it through bureau databases. This is a piece they hadn't counted on, an independent enforcer brought in for one job. He leaves the bar before the meeting ends, knowing he's heard enough to put another nail in the coffin. Back at the safe house, Harper identifies the man as Victor Leto, a contractor for hire with a record too clean to be real. He's done enforcement work for organized crime before, but nothing's ever stuck, she says, which means someone's been protecting him. Day 3, the final day, starts before sunrise. Harper has been awake all night, monitoring communications. At 6:14 a.m., Crowley calls. "It's happening," he says. "Russo just told me to authorize the wire transfer. 92 million split between 3 accounts. One's offshore." Cross doesn't waste time. "Do it exactly as he says, then get somewhere public. Stay in sight until we move." The plan is simple. Let the transfer start, then freeze it midstream so the accounts are locked but the money doesn't vanish. Harper coordinates with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, feeding them account numbers in real time. At 10:03 a.m., Russo arrives at the holding company's downtown office to oversee the deal. Cross is already in the lobby, disguised as a security consultant. He watches Russo step into the elevator, a smile on his face. Upstairs, the conference room buzzes with activity. Lawyers, brokers, and a handful of silent partners who keep their sunglasses on indoors. Russo takes the head of the table, shaking hands and laughing as if the future is already in his pocket. Then, at exactly 10:17 a.m., Harper sends the signal. Across town, the judge's eviction freeze order is filed with the county clerk. Simultaneously, the bureau freezes all 3 of the target accounts. Within seconds, phones start buzzing around the table. One by one, the smiles fade. "What the hell is this?" one of the lawyers demands. "The funds aren't clearing." Russo frowns, checking his phone. "It's a glitch. Try it again." But when they try again, the transfer bounces. A minute later, the door opens, and half a dozen federal agents step inside, badges raised. "Federal Bureau of Investigation." Everyone remains seated. Panic flares instantly. One of the silent partners bolts for the door, only to be intercepted by an agent. Hale mutters a curse under his breath as 2 more agents move to cuff him. Russo doesn't move. He just stares across the table at Cross. "You," he says softly. Cross reaches into his jacket and pulls out his own badge. "Special Agent Cross, you're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, money laundering, and a dozen other charges we can get to later." The room explodes into shouting. Lawyers demand to see warrants. One of the developers threatens to call his governor friend, and Hale spits insults as he's dragged out. Through it all, Russo just keeps staring, his expression unreadable. "You played the long game," he finally says. "I'll give you that." Cross leans in. Game's over. By noon, the entire East Side development scheme is dead. The tenants will stay in their homes, the financial accounts are locked, and the Bureau has enough evidence to put Russo, Hale, and their partners away for decades. But as Cross leaves the building, Harper's voice comes through the earpiece. "We've got a problem. Kane's gone. No one's seen him since last night." Cross doesn't stop walking. Then he's the next target. Because if Kane is still out there, the story isn't over. Not yet. Kane's disappearance isn't just a loose thread. It's a threat that could unravel everything Cross and Harper have built. Men like Kane don't simply vanish. They wait, they plan, and when they strike, it's at the weakest point. Harper has already pulled the last known locations from Kane's burner phones. The signals went dead late last night near the docks, an area Kane knows well from his smuggling days. Cross studies the map, tracing the streets and alleys in his mind. If he's running, Harper says, he's either going to ground or heading to someone who still owes him loyalty. Cross shakes his head. Kane doesn't run, not without taking a shot on his way out. The Bureau officially considers the case closed. The arrests from the East Side deal are enough for them to call it a win, but Cross knows Kane won't care about indictments or court dates. He'll care about payback, and Cross is at the top of his list. Malloy calls mid-morning. "You're not going to like this," he says. "One of my contacts saw Kane at a warehouse on Pier 17. Not alone. He had company. Couple of ex-cops who got bounced for excessive force." Cross knows the type. Men with badges who lost them for all the wrong reasons. Now selling muscle to the highest bidder. He and Harper drive to the docks, parking 2 blocks away to avoid notice. The warehouse is an old shipping facility, its corrugated metal walls rusting at the edges. Through a pair of binoculars, Cross sees movement inside, shadows pacing, a glint of metal from a gun barrel. Looks like he's building himself a little army, Harper murmurs. Cross lowers the binoculars. Then we take it apart before it's ready. The problem is, they don't have the Bureau's backing for this. Officially, Kane isn't part of the active case anymore. That means no warrants, no tactical team, just the two of them. They wait until nightfall. The air down by the water is damp and cold, fog curling around the pilings. Cross moves first, slipping through a side door whose lock has long since rusted away. Inside, the warehouse smells of oil and salt. Voices echo from the far side. Kane and two others arguing over money. "I said we wait," Kane growls. "Cross is riding high right now. We let him think he's safe, then we hit him where it hurts." One of the ex-cops laughs. "And where's that?" Kane pauses. "That woman he works with, Harper. You get to her, you get to him." Cross feels a cold weight settle in his chest. He motions for Harper to stay put, then circles closer, keeping to the shadows. From this angle, he can see the table where they're huddled. Blueprints are spread out, layouts of buildings Cross recognizes. One of them is the safe house. It's confirmation enough. He steps out of the shadows, gun raised. "End of the line, Kane!" The reaction is instant. Chairs scrape back, hands go for weapons. Harper bursts in from the side, her own gun trained on the nearest ex-cop. Kane smirks. "Took you long enough." "This isn't a game," Cross says. "You're done." But Kane isn't reaching for his gun. He's reaching for a small device on the table, a phone with a live video feed. On the screen is an exterior shot of the safe house, filmed from across the street. "You've got friends watching your place," Kane says. "One word from me and it burns." Harper's jaw tightens. "You wouldn't." Kane's smile widens. "You really think I came this far not to?" For a long moment, no one moves. Then Cross makes his choice. He shoots, not Kane, but the phone. The device explodes in a shower of sparks, the screen going black. "Guess your friends aren't getting that word," Cross says. Chaos erupts. One of the ex-cops lunges at Harper. She sidesteps and drops him with a sharp blow to the ribs. Kane dives for the blueprints, but Cross is faster, slamming him into the table. Papers scatter across the floor. It's a brutal fight. Kane is stronger, fueled by rage, but Cross fights with precision, each strike calculated. Finally, he drives Kane back against a support beam, pinning him with his forearm. "This ends tonight," Cross growls. Kane spits blood, smiling through split lips. "You think you've won? Russo's gone, Hale's gone, but there's always another. This city breeds men like us." Cross cuffs him without answering. Some things aren't worth a reply. By the time they drag Kane out to the car, Harper has collected the blueprints and swept the warehouse for any sign of backup. There's none. The two ex-cops are down, unconscious but alive. They don't take Kane to the Bureau. Instead, they deliver him to a secure federal holding site off the books, a place reserved for assets too dangerous to leave in circulation. The less paperwork, the better. Back at the safe house, Harper spreads the blueprints on the table. In addition to the safe house, there are two other buildings marked. An FBI field office and a community center in the East Side neighborhood they just saved. "He was planning more than just payback," Harper says. "He wanted to blow up everything we just fixed." Cross leans over the map, his jaw tight. "Then we make sure there's no one left to carry it out." Outside, the fog has thickened, swallowing the city lights. The war isn't over, not while there are still players on the board. But tonight, one more has been removed. And for now, that will have to be enough. Kane's words hang in Cross's mind long after the warehouse is cleared. There's always another. Men like Kane don't talk in riddles, they talk in threats. That means there's truth in what he said. Harper is already back at her laptop, combing through the documents recovered from the warehouse. Most of the files are blueprints and notes, but one folder is encrypted. She cracks it in under an hour. Inside are spreadsheets, names, dates, payment amounts. "Look at this," she says, spinning the laptop toward him. "These aren't just hired muscle, they're organized. Payments are regular and the amounts scale based on the type of job. Intimidation, sabotage, even targeted hits." Cross studies the list. Some names are familiar. Old enemies from past cases. Others are unknown, but the payments tie them all to one source. A company listed as Mariner Logistics. "Front company?" Harper asks. "Has to be," Cross says. "But if they're paying this many people, it's bigger than Russo and Hale ever were." They run a search on Mariner Logistics. Officially, it's a shipping and freight company operating out of 3 ports along the coast. Unofficially, it's a ghost. No legitimate contracts, no public records of clients, just a network of shell companies. Harper leans back. If Kane was working for them, he's not the top. He's a contractor, which means someone else is calling the shots. Cross knows what that means. Whoever sits at the top has resources Kane could only dream of. And they're still out there. The first lead comes from Malloy. Remember that warehouse fire last year, the one written off as an accident? He asks over the phone. I just got word from a friend in the fire department. Mariner Logistics had a unit in that building, and the insurance payout was triple what it should have been. Cross exchanges a look with Harper. Insurance fraud tied to organized crime. Classic laundering tactic. They start pulling at that thread. The fire report lists an investigator named Carla Jensen as the case lead. Cross calls her directly, expecting resistance, but she agrees to meet. Jensen is sharp, mid-40s, with the calm confidence of someone who's been in dangerous situations before. She slides a folder across the table. Inside are photos from the fire, burn patterns, debris, a half-melted shipping manifest. This wasn't an accident, she says flatly. Accelerants were used, and the manifest listed machinery parts, but all we found was scorched wood pallets. Someone swapped the cargo before the fire. What was actually in the shipment? Harper asks. Jensen hesitates, then lowers her voice. Weapons, military grade. My guess is they were headed overseas. The fire was a cover to erase the trail. Cross feels the pieces clicking together. Mariner Logistics isn't just moving people and money, they're moving weapons. That makes them a national security threat, and suddenly the stakes are higher than anything with Russo or Hale. But knowing it and proving it are two different things. They need hard evidence, something that ties Mariner directly to the smuggling. Jensen gives them their next lead. A ship scheduled to dock at Pier 29 in 3 nights, registered under Mariner's name. On paper, it's carrying agricultural equipment. They'll offload it fast, she warns. If you want to catch them, you'll need to be there before the first crate hits the dock. Cross nods. We'll be there. The next 3 days are a blur of preparation. Without official bureau backing, they have to build their own small team. Trusted agents who will work off the books. Malloy brings in 2. Jensen offers a contact in customs who owes her a favor. On the night of the operation, the air is thick with fog, the same kind that had cloaked the warehouse where they took Kane. Cross bulbs. Harper, Malloy, and the others move into position around Pier 29, their radios crackling softly. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the ship glides into view, its lights muted. Dock workers, real or hired, are already waiting with forklifts. From the shadows, Harper snaps photos, zooming in on the crate labels. These are fake, she whispers into the radio. The barcodes don't match the manifest. Cross moves closer, keeping low. One of the workers pries open a crate, revealing not farm machinery, but rifles, stacked, oiled, and ready for transport. That's our proof, Cross says. Move in. The team swarms the dock. Malloy intercepts a worker trying to flee. Jensen's contact from customs moves to secure the crates. Shouts erupt as the smugglers realize they've been caught. But then, in the chaos, Cross spots someone at the far end of the dock, watching, not running. A tall man in a dark coat, his face partially hidden. For a moment, their eyes meet. Then the man turns and melts into the fog. Who was that? Harper asks when Cross returns. Not sure, he says, but I think we just saw the one giving Kane his orders. They seize the shipment, arrest 5 dock workers, and secure enough evidence to formally tie Mariner Logistics to illegal arms trafficking. But the man in the coat is still out there. Back at the safe house, Harper lays out the night's photos. In one frame, barely visible through the fog, is the man's silhouette. Cross stares at it, a chill running through him. This isn't over. Whoever he is, he's not going to let this go. And just like that, the victory at Pier 29 feels less like an ending and more like the opening move in a much bigger game. The image of the tall man in the dark coat stays with Cross long after the operation at Pier 29. Men like that don't watch from the shadows for curiosity. They watch because they're calculating. And that means he's not just an observer. He's a decision maker. Harper runs the photo through every facial recognition database she has access to. The image is grainy, the fog distorting features, but the software still pulls a few partial matches. Most are dead ends, low-level enforcers or small-time smugglers who don't fit the profile. Then one name stands out, Elias Varrick. No official criminal record, no known address. But behind the clean public image, Varrick's name appears in classified files tied to arms dealing, offshore accounts, and political lobbying. He's been in the shadows for decades, Harper says, scrolling through a thin stack of declassified reports. Always the financier, never the one pulling the trigger. If Mariner Logistics is the front, Varrick's the one behind the curtain. Cross knows the type. Men like Varrick are ghosts. They let others take the fall while they move the pieces on the board. Malloy calls in with his own lead. I checked port records. Varrick's yacht docked here 2 nights before the Pier 29 shipment. No official crew list. And get this, it left the same night as the operation. So he was watching us and then slipped out, Harper says. Exactly. If he knows we're onto him, he's going to close ranks fast. Cross leans over the map on the table, tracing the connections. We can't go after him head on. We need to cut his lines of control first: money, supply, and the people protecting him. The first step is financial. Harper digs into the Mariner Logistics accounts, finding transfers routed through 4 shell corporations in different countries. One in Panama catches her attention. If we can freeze this account, it'll choke off most of his operating capital here, she says. But freezing it means getting the Bureau involved again, and Cross knows they won't act without undeniable proof. That means they need someone inside. Enter Carla Jensen. She's willing to help again, this time with an informant, a dockmaster named Luis Ortega who's been quietly feeding her information on suspicious shipments for years. Ortega claims Varrick has another delivery scheduled, smaller than the last but just as illegal, set to move through a private dock under Mariner's control. If we intercept it, Cross says, we'll have the direct tie we need. The plan forms quickly. Ortega will tip them when the cargo arrives. Cross, Harper, Malloy, and 2 trusted agents will move in to seize it and grab whatever documentation they can. 2 nights later, they're in position. The private dock is tucked away from the main harbor, guarded by 2 men who look more military than civilian. Cross and Malloy take them out quietly, leaving them zip-tied in a storage shed. Harper and 1 agent slip aboard the small freighter tied to the dock. Inside the cargo hold, the smell of machine oil is thick. Crates are stacked in neat rows, each marked with a false label. Harper pries one open, revealing disassembled sniper rifles wrapped in oiled cloth. That's our smoking gun, she says over the radio. But before they can start moving the crates, headlights sweep across the dock. A black SUV rolls up, and out steps Elias Varrick himself. He's taller than Cross expected, with silver hair and a calm, almost bored expression. 2 bodyguards flank him, scanning the dock with military precision. Well, Varrick says, his voice carrying easily in the night air, I had a feeling you'd show up sooner or later. Cross steps forward, gun at the ready. You're under arrest, Varrick. Varrick chuckles. No, Agent Cross, I'm leaving, and you're going to let me. He gestures slightly, and one of the bodyguards opens a case. Inside is a tablet showing a live feed. It's the community center on the east side, the one Cross and Harper fought to protect. Outside, 2 men in masks are pouring gasoline along the front steps. You see, Varrick says calmly, I do my homework. You care about that place, and I'm a man who believes in leverage. Cross's mind races. If he takes Varrick now, the men at the community center could torch the building before backup arrives. If he lets Varrick go, they lose their best shot at ending this. Harper's voice comes quietly over the earpiece. I can get a message to local PD in 2 minutes. Stall him. Cross keeps his gun steady. You think this scares me? I don't think, Varrick replies. I know. Every second feels stretched thin, the air heavy with tension. Then Harper gives the all clear. Sirens are already en route to the community center. Cross doesn't hesitate. Bodyguards first, he says into the comm. Malloy moves in, dropping one with a swift strike while the other is tackled by the second agent. Varrick turns to retreat, but Cross is faster, slamming him against the SUV and snapping cuffs onto his wrists. The tablet clatters to the ground, the feed cutting out. It's over, Cross says. Varrick doesn't fight, doesn't even look angry. He just smiles faintly. No, Agent Cross. It's only just begun. Back at the safe house, they catalog the seized rifles, the freight manifests, and Varrick's personal phone. Locked, but a treasure trove once they break it. The Bureau takes custody of him, but Cross knows men like Varrick don't stay locked up forever. Harper glances at the evidence wall, now more crowded than ever. We've cut off 1 head, she says, but this thing still has a dozen more. Cross nods slowly. Then we keep cutting until there's nothing left. Outside, dawn begins to break over the city. For the first time in days, the fog starts to lift. But Cross knows the shadows they're fighting aren't going anywhere. Not yet. Varrick's arrest should have been the turning point. Cross and Harper finally had him in custody, the weapons shipment seized, and enough evidence to put him away for decades. But the reality is different. By the next morning, the political machine is already grinding into motion, and it's grinding against them. It starts with a phone call from Deputy Director Kane at the Bureau. His voice is clipped, the tone all business. "Agent Cross, I've been informed that your team took Elias Varrick into custody without prior clearance. Effective immediately, all evidence from your operation will be transferred to a special oversight committee." Cross feels the heat rise in his chest. "With respect, sir, that evidence is part of an active—" "That's not your concern anymore," Kane interrupts. "Stand down. This comes from the top." The line goes dead before Cross can respond. Harper is waiting when he walks back into the safe house. "Let me guess, orders to back off?" "They're taking everything," Cross says. "Evidence, case files, even Varrick himself. No explanation." Malloy, leaning against the wall, lets out a bitter laugh. Translation: someone with influence made a phone call. It's not hard to imagine who. Varrick's network doesn't just consist of hired muscle and smugglers. It includes politicians, lobbyists, and people in positions to make problems disappear. By noon, the safe house feels different. Without the evidence, without jurisdiction, they're just observers again. Harper sits at her laptop, scanning the news. "Look at this. Varrick's already being painted as a misunderstood businessman. They're calling the raid an overreach by rogue agents." Cross knows the strategy well. Discredit the investigators, muddy the facts, and stall until public attention shifts. Once the headlines fade, Varrick will walk free. That night, a knock sounds at the safe house door. It's Carla Jensen, looking more tense than usual. She steps inside without waiting for an invitation. "You didn't hear this from me," she says, "but Varrick's hearing is set for 2 days from now. Closed session. No press. The charges will be reviewed. And by reviewed, I mean buried." 2 days? Harper says. "That's barely enough time to—" She trails off, already thinking through the options. Cross turns to Jensen. "What aren't they taking from us?" She hesitates, then pulls a flash drive from her jacket. "The shipment manifests you seized? I made copies before handing them over. They list every Mariner logistics shipment for the past 18 months, including the ones tied to overseas arms sales. It's not enough to convict Varrick outright, but it's a weapon, one they can use if they move fast." Harper plugs the drive into her laptop. "If we can cross-reference these with customs records, we can prove Mariner's entire operation, but we'll need access to restricted files." Malloy grins. "I might know a guy." The guy is a former customs agent named Reggie Cole, now working private security. He owes Malloy a favor, and within hours, they're sitting in the back of a dimly lit bar while Cole scrolls through a secure terminal on his tablet. "Here," Cole says, pointing to the screen. 3 shipments match your manifests exactly, all listed as agricultural machinery, all cleared through with falsified inspections. And the signatures? Same inspector every time." Cross leans closer. "Name?" Cole taps the file. "Daniel Mercer, still active, works out of the Coastal Inspection Office." If Mercer is part of Varrick's network, he's a direct link between Mariner Logistics and the illegal shipments. But getting him to talk will be dangerous. The next morning, Cross and Harper pay Mercer a visit at his office. He's mid-50s, with the kind of weary expression that comes from decades in bureaucracy. When Cross lays the manifests on his desk, Mercer's face goes pale. "I don't know what you think you have," Mercer says, voice tight. "We have enough to put you away," Cross replies evenly. "Or you can tell us who signed your orders and walk out of here with a deal." Mercer hesitates, eyes darting toward the closed door. "You don't understand. These people, they don't just ruin your career, they ruin your life, your family's life." Harper leans forward. "Then help us take them all down." For a long moment, Mercer says nothing. Then finally, he nods. "Fine, but I want full protection." Over the next hour, Mercer outlines everything. Varrick's network paid him to clear shipments without inspection, using offshore accounts for payment. The orders came from a liaison named Calhoun, someone Mercer never met in person but spoke to over encrypted calls. Calhoun, according to Mercer, reports directly to Varrick. It's the first solid lead to connect Varrick personally to the smuggling operation. But with the hearing just 1 day away, they have to move now. That night, Harper stays up gathering every file, every audio recording from Mercer's statement. Cross contacts Jensen, who agrees to get the evidence into the hands of a federal judge she trusts, someone outside the reach of Varrick's influence. By dawn, they're ready. Jensen delivers the package to the judge, bypassing the oversight committee entirely. Hours later, the news breaks. Elias Varrick's closed hearing has been postponed indefinitely, pending new federal charges. The statement is brief, but the meaning is clear. Someone higher up just yanked the rug out from under his defense. In the safe house, Harper lets out a slow breath. That bought us time, but not much. Cross nods. Then we use it, because Varrick's going to come back swinging, and next time he'll be ready for us. Outside, the city hums with its usual noise, oblivious to the shadow war playing out beneath the surface. But for Cross and Harper, the fight has never been more personal. Varrick might be in custody, but Cross knows men like him never stop moving pieces on the board. Even behind bars, his network operates like a well-oiled machine. Loyalists stepping into his place, messages carried through encrypted channels, money flowing in ways no one can trace fast enough. It starts 3 days after the postponed hearing. Harper is working through intercepted comms when her laptop pings with an urgent alert. She scans the screen, her face tightening. We've got movement. Mariner Logistics is shifting assets. 2 warehouses, both tied to our case, are being emptied tonight. Cross glances at the clock. That's not coincidence. They know the federal charges are coming and they're cleaning house before we can seize anything. Malloy checks the map spread across the table. One's at the waterfront, the other's inland near the old rail yard. We can't hit both at once without backup. Then we take the bigger one, Cross says. If they're moving priority cargo, it'll be at the waterfront. By nightfall, they're in position. The warehouse sits at the edge of a pier, sodium lights casting a sickly orange glow over the water. Semi-trailers are lined up at the loading bays, men in dark jackets hauling crates onto flatbeds. Harper watches through binoculars. Not standard dock workers. These guys are armed. Cross signals the team forward. They move in from 2 angles, quiet until they're within range. Then the first shout cuts through the night. "Federal agents! Drop your weapons!" Chaos erupts. 2 men reach for rifles, but Malloy is faster, disarming one with a sharp blow and knocking the other to the ground. Harper ducks behind a crate, covering Cross as he pushes toward the loading area. A flash of movement catches Cross's eye. Someone sprinting toward the far exit with a metal briefcase. He gives chase, boots pounding against the concrete. The runner bursts out onto the pier, but there's nowhere to go. Cross tackles him hard, the briefcase skidding across the wooden planks. When he flips the latch, the contents are exactly what he hoped for: ledgers, shipping logs, and coded communication sheets. Hard proof tying Varrick's operation to the shipments Mercer described. But before he can secure the case, headlights flare at the end of the pier. A black SUV roars toward them, tires screeching. Cross pulls the runner clear just as the vehicle slams through a stack of crates, scattering debris. 2 masked men leap out, guns drawn. Harper and Malloy are there in seconds, returning fire. One attacker goes down, the other dives back into the SUV, engine screaming as it peels away into the night. They regroup inside the warehouse, adrenaline still high. Harper kneels beside the briefcase, flipping through the ledgers. These dates match Mercer's manifests. And look, this code here, I've seen it in Varrick's offshore transfer records. Cross nods. This is enough to lock him down for real, but it also means his people will come after us harder than ever. They don't have to wait long. The next morning, Jensen bursts into the safe house, pale and out of breath. "Your names are all over the dark web," she says. "Photos, personal addresses, someone's put bounties on you. This isn't just about intimidation, they want you gone." Malloy mutters a curse. "Figures. The second we get close, they play dirty." Harper pulls up the posts Jensen mentions. The threats are detailed, too detailed, information that could only come from inside the system. "We've got a leak," she says. Cross studies the files, then makes a decision. "We go to ground. No predictable routes, no calls from unsecured lines. And we keep pushing, because if we stop now, they win." The following days are a blur of movement. They switch safe houses twice, following trails from the ledgers. One lead points to a storage facility on the outskirts of the city where they find crates of military-grade communications gear. Another takes them to a private airstrip where a cargo plane is being loaded for an unlisted flight, until they intervene and seize it. Each hit bleeds Varrick's network a little more, but each one also draws more heat. On the 3rd night, as Cross steps out of a borrowed apartment, a shot cracks the air, splintering the doorframe inches from his head. He dives back inside, heart pounding. Harper yanks the curtain aside just in time to see a motorcycle vanish into traffic. "They're not even subtle anymore," she says. The close call cements what Cross already knows. They're on borrowed time. Varrick's allies are desperate, and desperate people make reckless moves. 2 days later, a message arrives through one of their secure channels. It's from Mercer. His voice is shaky on the audio file. "They found me. I don't know how long I can stay ahead of them. There's one more thing I didn't tell you. Calhoun isn't just a liaison. He's in law enforcement, high up. That's how they've been staying a step ahead." The revelation hits hard. If Calhoun is embedded at a senior level, every move Cross's team makes could be reported back to Varrick's people in real time. Harper exhales sharply. "That explains the leak." Cross sets his jaw. "Then we find Calhoun. And when we do, we drag him into the light. But finding him won't be easy. They have no first name, no photo, just a voice Mercer remembers from encrypted calls. Still, it's something." Harper begins the painstaking process of filtering through voice recognition databases, narrowing the list. By midnight, she looks up from the screen. "I think I've got him." She turns the laptop so they can see the image. A man in his late 40s, wearing a dress uniform at a police awards ceremony. Deputy Commissioner Calhoun. Malloy lets out a low whistle. "That's about as high as it gets without being chief." Cross stares at the photo. And now we know exactly why this case has been bleeding from the inside. Outside, rain begins to fall, tapping against the windows like a warning. The city feels different tonight. Tense, watchful, as if it knows what's coming. Cross doesn't have to guess. The counterstrike has begun, and if they're not careful, it will end them before they ever get the chance to finish what they started. The rain hasn't stopped since Harper pulled up Calhoun's photo. It drums against the safehouse windows, a steady rhythm that matches the tension in the room. Cross stands over the table, staring at the deputy commissioner's face on the laptop screen. It's the first clear target they've had in weeks, but also the most dangerous one. Malloy leans back in his chair, arms crossed. "You realize what happens if we make a move on a guy like him without airtight proof? We're the ones who'll get buried." "That's why we don't just move," Cross replies. "We build a case so solid it can't be spun. Not even by someone with his connections." Harper is already typing, pulling up every public record, news article, and police department memo she can find on Calhoun. He's been in law enforcement 25 years, decorated, publicly spotless. But his promotions don't make sense. 3 jumps in rank in under a decade, each one after a major smuggling case fell apart. Jensen frowns. And every one of those cases involved port activity. That's not coincidence. Cross's phone buzzes. It's a secure line. Mercer. His voice is even shakier this time. "They know I talked. I've been watching the street. 2 black sedans, same ones every day. If I disappear, Calhoun's your guy. Don't let them cover for him." The line cuts abruptly. Cross looks at Harper. "Trace that call." She shakes her head. "Already bounced through too many relays, but I might be able to pinpoint a location if he calls again." They don't have the luxury of waiting. The team agrees to split. Harper and Jensen will dig deeper into Calhoun's financials, while Cross and Malloy try to intercept Mercer before he vanishes. The city feels colder as they drive, the rain blurring the glow of streetlights. Cross keeps his eyes on the side streets, scanning for the sedans Mercer mentioned. When they turn onto a narrow road near the docks, he spots them. 2 black cars parked a block apart, engines idling. "Bingo," Malloy mutters. They pull around the corner and approach on foot. One sedan peels off the curb, heading toward a row of run-down apartment buildings. Cross moves faster, rounding the corner just in time to see Mercer being shoved into the back seat. "FBI!" Cross's shout cuts through the rain. The driver hits the gas. Malloy fires a single shot into the front tire. The sedan skids, smashing into a street pole. Cross yanks open the back door, pulling Mercer out. The man is pale, trembling, but alive. The 2 men in the front scramble out, hands raised when they see Cross's badge and the weapon in his other hand. Malloy cuffs them quickly, and within minutes they've called in a secure transport. But Mercer's fear is obvious. His hands won't stop shaking. "You don't get it," he says. "Calhoun doesn't leave loose ends. If you've got me, he's going to come for you next." Back at the safe house, Harper is waiting with news. "We found it. Calhoun has a shell company registered under his brother's name. Guess who's been moving funds through it?" Cross leans over her shoulder. Offshore transfers, each matching the exact amounts from Varrick's ledgers. This ties him to the smuggling ring directly, Jensen adds. We also pulled up internal comm logs. Calhoun's been accessing sealed case files, including yours, Cross. That's how he's been feeding them information. It's enough to confront him, but Cross knows Calhoun won't fold under polite questioning. They need to catch him in the act. The plan takes shape quickly. Mercer agrees to act as bait, arranging a meeting with Calhoun under the pretense of fleeing the city for good. The location, an abandoned shipping terminal where there are no cameras, no witnesses, except the ones Cross will bring. The night of the meet, the rain has finally stopped, leaving the air damp and cold. Harper and Jensen set up surveillance gear from a van parked 2 blocks away. Malloy waits in the shadows near the terminal entrance. Mercer arrives first, looking every bit the desperate man on the run. Minutes later, a black SUV rolls up. Calhoun steps out, his polished shoes clicking against the wet concrete. You've made a smart choice, Calhoun says smoothly, handing Mercer an envelope. There's enough in there to get you far away from here. But first, your phone. Mercer hesitates, then hands it over. Calhoun crushes it under his heel without a second thought. Can't have anyone tracking you. That's Cross's cue. He steps out from behind a stack of crates, weapon drawn. Deputy Commissioner Calhoun, FBI, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and aiding an international smuggling operation. Calhoun doesn't flinch. You've got nothing that will stick. Harper's voice crackles through Cross's earpiece. Oh, I think we do. Every word you've said for the last 2 minutes is on record. And that envelope you just handed over? Marked bills from our evidence locker. For the first time, Calhoun's expression shifts. It's subtle, but the mask slips just enough to show he knows he's cornered. Malloy steps out of the shadows, cuff in hand. Game's over, Commissioner. But Calhoun isn't done yet. He lunges sideways, shoving Mercer into Cross and sprinting toward the SUV. Harper's van screeches around the corner, blocking the exit. Jensen jumps out, weapon ready. Seconds later, Calhoun is on the ground, wrists bound, breath coming in sharp bursts. Cross kneels beside him. You've been bleeding this city for years. That ends tonight. As they haul him into the transport, Cross catches Mercer's eye. The man looks relieved for the first time since they met. Back in the van, Harper exhales. With Calhoun down, Varrick's network just lost its shield. We can finally bring the rest of them down. Cross knows it's not over yet. But as the first light of dawn breaks over the city, there's a sense that the tide has finally shifted. The walls are closing in, and this time, they're not the ones trapped inside. The arrest of Deputy Commissioner Randall Calhoun sends shockwaves through the department and the city. Overnight, headlines plaster his face across every news outlet. Once hailed as a decorated lawman, now exposed as the insider who shielded one of the largest smuggling operations on the East Coast. Public outrage grows by the hour. Protesters gather outside precinct headquarters, holding signs demanding accountability. But Cross knows the real fight isn't over. With Calhoun gone, Varrick is exposed, but that also means he's dangerous. Cornered men make desperate moves, and Varrick's network still has resources, money, influence, loyalists willing to burn the city to protect him. The Bureau wastes no time. Using the evidence from the briefcase, the ledgers, and Calhoun's recorded confession, they secure federal warrants for simultaneous raids on every known Varrick property. Harper coordinates the operation from a secure command center, Jensen relays tactical updates to each team, and Malloy insists on riding with Cross to the primary target, Varrick's heavily guarded estate on the outskirts of the city. The convoy moves at dawn, engines rumbling down the fog-covered highway. Cross sits in the lead vehicle, going over the plan again in his head. In and out, he tells the team. Secure Varrick alive. We want him to face trial, not become a martyr. The estate looms ahead, high stone walls topped with cameras and razor wire. The front gates are shut, but the armored truck in the convoy takes care of that, ramming them open with a crash of metal and splintering wood. Agents flood the grounds, fanning out to neutralize guards before they can mount a defense. Inside, the mansion smells of expensive cigars and aged whiskey. Marble floors gleam under crystal chandeliers, but the opulence feels hollow, more like a mask than a home. Cross moves swiftly, checking each room, until a shout from upstairs draws him to a set of double doors. Malloy is already there, weapon raised. He's in here! They burst in to find Varrick seated at a massive oak desk, as if the chaos outside doesn't concern him. He's dressed in a tailored suit, a glass of amber liquid in hand. Special Agent Cross, Varrick says calmly, leaning back in his chair. I was wondering when you'd drop by. Cross keeps his weapon trained on him. It's over, Varrick. Calhoun's in custody. Your accounts are frozen. Your people are scattering. Varrick smirks. You think taking down one dirty cop ends this? I built something bigger than you can imagine. Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. Not this time, Cross says. He tosses a folder onto the desk. It slides to a stop in front of Varrick. Inside are photographs, financial statements, shipment manifests, all tied directly to him. We have enough to bury you under federal charges for the rest of your life. For the first time, Varrick's expression hardens. You have no idea what you've started. Malloy steps forward, cuffs in hand. We'll take our chances. Varrick doesn't resist as they restrain him, but the cold glint in his eyes promises this isn't the end, at least not in his mind. Cross doesn't care. This isn't about promises, it's about facts. And the fact is, Varrick is leaving here in federal custody. Outside, the estate is swarming with agents cataloging evidence, artwork with false backs hiding cash, crates of smuggled goods, encrypted computers. Harper's voice comes over the radio. Secondary targets secured. We've got key lieutenants in custody, no casualties, operation's a success. The transport vehicle carrying Varrick pulls away, flanked by unmarked SUVs. The sun is breaking through the fog now, casting long streaks of gold across the wet pavement. For the first time in weeks, Cross feels the tight knot in his chest loosen. Back at headquarters, the press conference is packed. The Bureau's director lays out the details. Calhoun's betrayal, Varrick's capture, the dismantling of the smuggling network. Cameras flash, reporters shout questions, and for once the story isn't about corruption winning. After the conference, Cross steps outside into the crisp morning air. Harper joins him, handing over a fresh cup of coffee. We did it, she says simply. Yeah, Cross replies, taking a sip, but this isn't the kind of fight that ends with one win. There'll always be another Varrick, another Calhoun. Malloy comes up beside them, grinning. Then we'll just have to keep knocking them down. For a moment, they stand there in silence, watching the city come to life. People walking to work, buses rumbling down the streets, the normal rhythm returning. It's a reminder of why they do this, not for the headlines, not for the credit, but for the people who never even know how close danger came. That night, Cross returns to the same sidewalk where it all started, the cracked concrete outside the boarded-up pawn shop. The paper cup is gone, the cold wind still sweeps through the street, but the memory is fresh. A cop with too much arrogance, a homeless man with too much patience, and the moment everything changed. He knows there will be more cases, more threats, more nights spent chasing shadows. But for now, the city is a little safer, the streets a little quieter, and justice, real justice, has been served. As he walks away, the streetlights flicker on, casting a warm glow over the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wails, but Cross doesn't speed up. He just keeps walking, steady and sure, knowing that whatever comes next, he and his team will be ready.